Chaos ensues in the Middle East, and Project Freedom is put on pause. But why was that? This is exactly what I get into in my latest interview with NTD News. You're not going to want to miss this. Hey,
To dive further into the latest updates on the Iran war, we're bringing in Kervin O'Quinn, former lead intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance coordinator for the U.S. Army. So, Kervin, thank you for joining us, as always. So, according to remarks from President Trump and Pakistan at this point, it seems like a deal could be happening soon, at least according to those parties. But of course, we've heard this before. Is there a reason to believe, we're reaching a point of the end of the war right now? What is your feeling on this?
Yeah, well, once again, as always, it's so good to be a part of this, Don. And excellent question, and I like how you framed it because you said exactly what I was about to say. We've heard this before, right? The U.S. and Iran are close to an agreement. Iran has presented the U.S. with a deal. The U.S. has presented Iran with a deal, and we go back and forth. And now we're seeing right now that the United States and the Trump administration have provided Pakistan with their sort of one-page deal for Iran to accept in order to start a 30-day negotiation on the nuclear and uranium enrichment in that country. And I think that is where everything stands right now, right? So the U.S. wants to pause the conflict right now. They want to call this the end of the war, give Iran that opportunity to stop the fighting for certain measures that have been presented to them. One of which is that the stopping of sanctions or the release of funds from sanctions to Iran to boost up their economy. But they are keeping these no nuclear weapons agreements on the table. And that is something that's just a no-go for the Iranian regime right now.
Do you think the Iranian regime will accept the U.S.'s point that it has to give up its uranium?
I think at some point they're going to have to, but I don't think this is that time. My assessment here is it is likely that in the next few days we are going to see the Iranian regime accept the deal that is in place right now with this public statement that we're going to accept the deal and go through these 30 days of nuclear discussions, but we are not giving up this uranium enrichment, and we are not giving up this fight to continue to what they would say is create nuclear power that is going to power their country, not so much a nuclear weapon, which is what the U.S. and Israel are afraid of.
Okay, so under what circumstances do you think the Iranian regime will tell the U.S. and promise that it's going to give up its nuclear ambitions and it's not going to pursue that anymore? Under what circumstances would Iran say that?
Well, I think there's a couple here. One is Iran is looking for control of the Strait of Hormuz. That is going to allow them to recoup payments on all those ships that are moving. So that's one of the things that Iran's looking for right now, to be at least a partial owner of the Strait of Hormuz and own that traffic that's crossing there as well. The Iranian regime is also looking to project power. To project power, they need money. They need money to build out their ballistic missiles. And in order to do that, they need the release of those sanctions. So those are two of the main things that if the U.S. puts that on the table, I do think Iran comes running to sign that paperwork and then start those discussions on a nuclear deal.
Okay, but even if Iran gives the U.S. its word, how do we know that it's going to live up to its promises? How do we make sure that years down the road it doesn't restart its nuclear program?
Yeah, excellent. I mean, this was the problem with the Obama administration and the deal that they made with Iran. That had some some guardrails in place. The IAEA, so the nuclear body that would check and make sure that Iran is not enriching uranium past the level that it would need to create nuclear weapons. What we saw during that time frame was that Iran was being very shady about it, and they were not letting these IAEA individuals into the country in order to check their uranium enrichment. And that's really where President Trump hit hard in his first term in order to stop that agreement, the JICPOA with Iran, and that's because he saw this as Iran skirting that agreement in order to actually enrich uranium, and we've seen that now. We have intelligence that states that Iran was on the cusp of uranium enrichment at the degree that they needed to actually be used within a ballistic missile. And so I think they're going to need to put strict guardrails in place. They're going to need, the U.S. is going to need to identify moderate people within the regime that is going to accept this in good faith. But honestly, that's a long way of answering your question to say that we just don't know. You can't trust the Iranian regime. We don't know who's in charge, really. And so we don't know if Iran would agree to that they would actually follow through with it.
That is, unless we get a full ideological and regime change of the current Iranian regime, a full ideological change. But maybe that's a discussion for another time. What do you feel? What is your feeling on where we are right now in this war, at this Operation Epic Fury? A few days ago, Secretary of State Marco Rubio actually said during a press conference that the operation is over, it's concluded, but that hasn't been repeated very much by the Trump administration. So where do you feel we are right now? Are we winding down this operation? Are we, still ready to re-engage with Iran in terms of bombings if the ceasefire or a deal does not come through? Where are we right now?
Yeah, we are at that point, Don, where yes, there are still tankers moving, and I mean military tankers and aircraft moving into the region. We still have two carrier strike groups in the region right now. Yes, the U.S. is ready, and I think the U.S. military is willing to re-engage Iran militarily and forcefully if diplomatic efforts do not. We don't see an achievement of diplomatic efforts between the U.S. and Iran through that mediator. So yes, absolutely. The war is the conflict is on pause. There is not much fighting that is going on. Everyone is pretty calm, and within the U.S. CENTCOM AOR, people are pretty calm right now. But that could change at any given moment, and that is all based on what Iran does over the next few days.
Okay, what is your opinion on President Trump pausing Project Freedom?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, right? All over, so various news reports coming out that Project Freedom was paused, not because the U.S. was waiting for Iran to respond to the peace negotiations, but somehow they were paused because Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the regional partners, the Gulf countries had restricted ABO, which is access, basing, and overflight within the region. And from what I have seen in the open source that I have analyzed has seen that that is likely what did happen. The early reports were that it happened because the Gulf countries were surprised about Project Freedom. What we're finding out now is that the Gulf countries, and which probably most likely happened, was the Gulf countries were quite upset with how the United States reacted or did not react to Iranian strikes on those Gulf countries. With someone like General Kane saying this did not meet the threshold of breaking the ceasefire, and they were not protecting those Gulf countries. That really upset those countries there. And for that, they punished the United States and the U.S. military by not letting them have overflight or access to the region in order to conduct Project Freedom. But I also believe Project Freedom was paused because they were waiting. The United States was waiting for Iran to give feedback on the peace negotiations that were sent in. So the Project Freedom was paused, but it also had to be paused. That overflight, they would not be able to successfully successfully sort of agree or determine that ships could pass within the Strait of Hormuz successfully.
Well, all right. Sounds good, Kervin. Let's leave it there for today. We'll speak another time. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much. Stay safe out there.